evening. It is 7 o'clock. I'll call to order the December 17th, 2024 meeting of the Fort Atkinson City Council. Clerk Everett, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Becker,
Here.
Councilman Jekyll,
Here.
Councilman Schultz,
Here.
President Lisco here.
Here. Public hearings, item 3A, public hearing relating the petition to discontinue Trillium Drive in the city of Fort Atkinson, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. Before we open it up for any participation from the public, first we'll have a report from Public Works Director Selly.
Thank you. Council recalls likely that Trillium Drive was brought before you and approved as a CSM within just about a year ago, I believe. As we've moved forward with the design of this area, we've realized that the right-of-way that we had outlined in that CSM is off slightly. And it's off in a number of different places, so it made the most sense to kind of just simply vacate the existing right-of-way that's recorded, so as to then come back to Planning Commission and Council with a preliminary plat for what will be the Ridgeview Estates subdivision in that area. That preliminary plat should be coming forward to the next Planning Commission meeting within the new year, so close on the heels. So the city owns all of the land on both sides of this right-of-way that's being vacated. As council may recall, we've been through this process twice before where there were multiple owners of property adjacent to the right-of-way and various steps involved in that. And we heard from all of those property owners. This is slightly different in this situation with the city being the sole property owner. However, we have followed the state statutes, so we are invoking the public hearing this evening. We have moved forward with a Class 3 public notice on this request, and city staff did submit a petition to council, I think in their November meeting, that sort of kicked off the process that we are concluding hopefully this evening. So a little summary of the requests there. I assume we'll take questions related to this when it comes to the actual resolution later in the evening.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you for that report. At this time, I would invite anyone from the public who is interested in providing some comments on the petition to discontinue the Trillium Drive to please step forward to the podium. This is the first of 3 calls, and if anyone is following along on Zoom and would like to participate, we'll come back and we'll catch you on the 3rd call. Okay, this is the 2nd call for anyone wanting to provide comments on the petition to discontinue Trillium Drive. And 3rd and final call. If there is anyone on Zoom at this time, please state your name and address for the record if you would like to provide comment. Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Item 4, public comment. The City Council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon: name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comments unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. Note for those following along on hybrid meeting, if anyone on the Zoom wishes to speak during the public comment period, please raise your virtual hand through Zoom. The chat box is not monitored during the meeting, and those on the call, please remain muted if you are not recognized to speak. We have no one who has signed up in person this evening to provide public comment. This time, I'd invite anyone who is following along on Zoom to provide or give us your name and address. Not hearing anyone, public comment is over. Consent agenda, item 5. The consent agenda outlined below is hereby presented for action by the City Council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed, items 5A through 5G.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the consent agenda as listed, items 5A through 5G. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. There are none this evening. Resolutions and ordinances. Item 7A, review and possible action on a resolution to discontinue Trillium Drive in the city of Fort Atkinson. Director of Public Works, Selly.
Feel like we just talked about this. Yeah, so as I had mentioned earlier, the reasons for this, I failed to mention that we are on the heels of a planning commission meeting. They did take a look at this at their meeting on December the 10th and did recommend moving this forward to council for consideration. So at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions associated with this request for the resolution to discontinue.
Any questions for Director Selly? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the resolution to discontinue Trillium Drive in the city of Fort Atkinson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution to discontinue Trillium Drive in the city of Fort Atkinson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7B, review and possible action relating to a resolution defederalizing American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, in the city of Fort Atkinson, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. So the city received 1.3, a little bit over $1.3 million through the American Rescue Act in 2021 and 2022, supplemental funding from the federal government to address revenue loss and other needs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have, at that time, we put the money into a separate fund, which was recommended by our financial advisors and our auditors. We call it Fund 22. We've had budgets for that fund in each of the last several years. The council has, and staff really have used those funds sparingly since 2021, mainly focusing on one-time projects and purchases that would not have been possible without the supplemental revenue. We definitely always tried to stay away from things that would be ongoing funding requirements with these funds. So the ARPA regulations require that the funds be obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. So over the last few months, we have understood that we have had some funds that have not been obligated. So Clerk Ebert and I reached out to our auditors, financial advisors. Clerk Ebert did many webinars with the federal government to determine the best way to move forward with our funds that we thought we could, allocate through some sort of a resolution, but it turns out we needed, signed contracts to obligate the funds. So then we started looking at other options for use of these funds with the goal of being able to utilize them as we are currently utilizing them for one-time projects, for capital improvements that wouldn't otherwise be able to be funded, and similar type purchases or projects up to the discretion of the city council, of course. So we in working with those groups, we determined that this defederalizing the funds would be a proper path forward. And in order to do that, we actually need to transfer all of the remaining funds to our general fund and use them. So we're taking all this resolution that is in the packet tonight. The effect of it is utilizing the remaining ARPA funds in the 2024 general fund expenditure budget, and then transferring at year end the equivalent amount of the leftover into a fund, an assigned fund balance account that would be assigned ARPA funds. So we could continue to use those funds as we have been using them, but now without any sort of additional obligation. So they wouldn't need to be spent by the end of 26. We could just use them on projects we deem appropriate for forever, because we have defederalized them in this way. So there are a few tables in here. Most of the tables are really just for transparency purposes. You can see that we have been very conservative with our use of ARPA funds, and the council has approved all of these various projects. So starting in 2021, it was mainly focused on technology relating to hybrid meetings and during the pandemic. 2022, we had other fun or other projects that we did in 2023. Those are all outlined in the resolution. The 2024 funds, the city budgeted almost $371,000 for projects included in the table 2 that's on the resolution and in the memo. Those projects will not all be spent by the end of 2024. So those all, we have spent some of those funds. Those are all obligations for us because we have signed contracts and various things in place for all of them, but those funds won't all be out the door for those specific projects by the end of 2024. And then the 2025 budget also uses some ARPA funds, about $125,000 worth of ARPA funds. So that is shown in table 3. Those are all items that were included in the 2025 operating and or capital budget that was adopted by the council in November. So the table 4 then goes through the total supplemental funding, everything that has been expended to date, and then the remaining funds to be used in 2024, which is $865,783.51. So then we have that $371,000 that we budgeted in 24. So we're going to use all of that $865,000 for expenditures in 2024. And then we'll net out things that are budgeted. And then that remaining transfer of funds to the assigned fund balance account, specifically for ARPA, will be $494,818.47. So I will also note that we have, because we were conservative in our use and because interest has been a great thing for us the last couple of years, we did earn $82,181.29 in interest income from these funds. That interest income does not have to move to anywhere. So that will remain in the general fund, which will roll over to the general fund unassigned fund balance at the end of 2024. And the difference, of course, between the unassigned and the assigned fund balance is that the unassigned, we have a policy, the city council has directed staff to maintain that unassigned fund balance between 15 and 30% of our general fund operating budget. An assigned fund balance account does not have that same obligation, which would allow the city eventually to spend all of that $484,000 on various projects that the council approves. So staff does recommend that the city council adopt the resolution defederalizing our American Rescue Plan Act funds, which takes the following action: uses the remaining $865,000 of ARPA funds for general government purposes in 2024, transfers that same amount plus any interest income to the general fund revenue account by the end of 2024, and then transfers $494,818.47 to an assigned fund balance account named ARPA by January 31st, 2025. So, and then throughout 2025, as purchases or things come to our attention or things that are budgeted in the 2025 budget for ARPA funds, staff would come back to the city council and ask to transfer those funds from the ARPA assigned fund balance account to whatever account we would be spending the funds out of, an expenditure account. I'd be happy to answer any questions relating to this from the city council.
Do have one question. I assume that we've talked with our auditors and this follows accepted principles and what we're doing.
Correct. I did send the resolution to our auditors to take a look at, make sure I have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and got a little feedback back, and that was incorporated into the resolution.
Great.
I don't really have any questions. I understand it. It's kind of sounds convoluted, but it's following accepted principles. And I think it's just a credit to you and the staff here that we still have that remaining balance. I know there's many other communities where they kind of blew through that money right away, you know, for better or worse. So it's really good that we still have a good amount to put to use for future purposes. It's really great. I would move to approve a resolution defederalizing ARPA funds in the city of Fort Atkinson, Jefferson County, Wisconsin.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any further discussion?
One just comment.
Mhm.
Sorry. Obviously, the ARPA funds has been a very unique situation, and I think that I want to thank city manager for the amount and city engineer and all those involved in turning those funds into projects and things for the city that probably couldn't have been done without it. Whether or not you agree how much you want the federal government to be spending money, I think it did show a direct benefit here in the city. And especially navigating all the rules around how these funds are supposed to be spent. I think it's a testament to the professionalism work that you're doing here for the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve a resolution defederalizing American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds in the city of Fort Atkinson, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is approved. Motion is approved. Okay, item 7C, review and possible action relating to a resolution amending the 2024 annual City of Fort Atkinson budget relating to a transfer of funds between tax increment districts. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. So in August, the city council adopted resolution number 1421, which is included in your packet with the memo on this item. That was a budget amendment for the 2024 budget. And it transferred, let's see, how much did it transfer?
Is it the 811?
No.
No.
It transferred $1.7 million from TID 6, or excuse me, from TID 8 to TID 6 to close out TID 8 and help pay off the debt for TID 6. As we know, TID 6 is distressed, and TID 8 is planned for closure in 2025. The council took that action in August of 2024 as well. So what is before you tonight is an adjustment to the dollar amount. So when we were looking at that resolution and determined that dollar amount, we failed to take into account the $472,000 that was already transferred from TID 8 to TID 6 that was budgeted for that purpose at the beginning of the year. So back in 2023, when we approved, when the city council approved the 2024 budget, they included a transfer of $472,000 from 8 to 6, which was normal, right? That has been normal over the last 10 years or so since TID 6 was declared distressed. TID 7 and TID 8 have been donating excess increment to TID 6 to help pay off the debt and be able to close all 3 TIDs. So in August, again, the city council had a workshop with our financial advisors talking about the future of those 3 tax increment districts. The council established an affordable housing fund and indicated that TID 8 would be closing in 2025, and then set the stage for TID 7 and 6 to close in 2026. So again, this is a budget amendment. It does require 2/3 of the city council to approve it. And it is based in just an error in the amount of money that that staff asked the city council to transfer back in August. So this just corrects that. The adopted amount of money adopted in the 2024 budget for that transfer from 8 to 6 was $472,000. The amended amount is $1.2 million, and the difference is $811,262.91. So that amount would be transferred from TID 8 to TID 6 by the end of the year through this budget resolution. And then you can also see in the tables on page 41 of the packet that looks at the anticipated revenue in 2024 for TID 6, that second table, and then gives us an anticipated end-of-year balance, or really the indebtedness of TID 6. So there, we still have a little ways to go in 6. We still anticipate being able to pay back all of those funds in 2025 and being able to close that TID in 2026. I would be happy to answer any questions on this matter.
Any questions for the city manager?
So basically in spring 26, the council at that time can take action. TID number 6 will be closed, which I think will be a big achievement for the city. I know it's been a difficulty for the city budget for a few years, but I think that's a good thing.
Yes, this keeps us in line with our TID housing enclosure timeline. That's also included in the packet for the city council and for the public. We will be able to continue that and keep all three of those TIDs open for one additional year to create that and fund that affordable housing fund. So yes, this is a very positive thing. Seeing a light at the end of the TID 6 distressed tunnel is a great thing. And if the Joint Review Board and the council so approves items in the future, we will be able to create a new TID and then incentivize development in that area of the city.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve a resolution amending the 2024 annual City of Fort Atkinson budget relating to a transfer of funds between tax increment districts. Direct the city clerk, treasurer, finance director to publish the change on the city's website and transfer the additional $811,000, $262.91 by December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve a resolution amending the 2024 annual City of Fort Atkinson budget relating to a transfer of funds between tax increment districts. Direct the city clerk, treasurer, finance director to publish the change on the city's website and transfer the additional $811,262.91 by December 31st, 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Item 7D, second and possible third and final reading of an ordinance relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the property located at 211 Memorial Drive, parcel number 226-0514-0312-050, from single-family residential SR5 to institutional I, ZMA 2024-02. Building inspector, we have Director Selly standing in this evening.
Zoning Administrator Drager had a child concert this evening to attend, so we let him off the hook. Yeah, this is, as noted, President Lesko here, this is the second reading of this zoning map amendments. This property used to be the Fort Family Dental property and has remained vacant. I'm not sure for how long, but for a few months at least. And the owner had made this request to move to institutional zoning so as to better fit, I believe, the future use, and don't quote me here, was some offices in that space. So the council heard this on December the 3rd. The Planning Commission had a public hearing on this on November the 26th. There were a few residents that came and spoke about their long tenured experience with the property, generally in a positive light associated with this. We have not had any comments from the public since that meeting on December the 3rd, where we presented the first reading of this. I'd be happy to answer any questions associated with this request.
Andy, I'm assuming not, but has staff gotten any other comments on this at all from members of the public?
We've not, other than those two neighbors that spoke at the public hearing at the Planning Commission.
I support moving this forward. I think this is very common sense and it matches the historic use of that property. As I shared last time, I grew up on that street. It's been some kind of medical clinic or facility as long as I could remember. So I will move to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of the zoning map amendment ordinance.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of the zoning map amendment ordinance. This requires a supermajority and any roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Jekyll,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Let's go here.
Aye, it's improved 4-0. This time I'd entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance.
I move to adopt the ordinance relating to the zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the property located at 211 Memorial Drive from single-family residential to institutional.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to adopt the ordinance relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the property located at 211 Memorial Drive from single-family residential SR5 to institutional I. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reports of officers, boards, and committees. Item 8A, City Manager's Report. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. The city, the Chamber of Commerce and Enactus from UW-Whitewater unveiled the logo for the Boost Fort Atkinson Business Competition on December 11th. Congratulations to Bob Head of Orange Whip Design for submitting the winning logo. Registration for the program, which includes 4 workshops, is currently open. And for more information, please visit the websites for the city, the chamber, or Enactus. The museum held its final public program of the year on Saturday, December 14th. The annual holiday open house featured a wool felting workshop, gingerbread house decorations, holiday crafts, and more. The museum will be closed for the holidays, but open to the public on December 27th and 28th, before closing again for maintenance projects in January. Staff will be working on site during that time. I have a few staffing updates here, so bear with me. The Police and Fire Commission met yesterday and approved the promotion of Officer Vanessa Leonard to Lieutenant Vanessa Leonard. She'll become the first female member of the police department's command staff, so I'm very pleased to welcome her in this new role. The PFC also approved Kayla Brook as a new part-time firefighter EMT, and a couple weeks ago approved the promotion of Captain Paul Verhalen to part-time division chief and the promotion of Nate Lawrence to part-time captain. So they're both paid on call or time members of our department. So congratulations to them. Trevor Roulette has been promoted to wastewater utility foreperson. Jim Witecki is moving from public works operations to the parks and forestry facilities specialist position. Welcome to Mindy Fry, who started as a confidential administrative assistant and records clerk in the police department just this past week, Monday. And congratulations to Paul Christensen for his almost 40 years of service to the city of Fort Atkinson in the wastewater utility. We'll prepare a proclamation recognizing Paul in his retirement in early 2025, so that he will come back. I also want to thank Andy Selly for his almost 10 years with the city as the city engineer and public works director. It's challenging to describe the impact Andy has had on this organization and on the physical development of the city for about the last decade. We'll continue to see the fruits of his labors for many years to come, and we appreciate your contributions, Andy. The Dwight Foster Public Library's winter reading program is open from December 16th through the 31st of January. We are encouraging community members of all ages to fall in love with reading this winter. Check out the library's website for more details and for holiday hours. Property tax bills were mailed last week and can be paid at the municipal building between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday through January 31st. Note that the municipal building will be closed on December 24th, 25th, and January 1st for the holidays. Representatives from the Friends of Homerson's Pond, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, the City Council, and City staff organized and attended a groundbreaking event to celebrate the kickoff of the Homerson's Pond Concession and Storage Building project last week. The city's hosting the Chamber of Commerce Project Lead Program tomorrow morning in this very room, which will feature a short presentation and a tour of the municipal building. Our own Ben Dayton is a project lead member this year. Staff is participating in United Way of Jefferson County and Northern Walworth County's Bingo for a Better Community event tomorrow night at McGrath's. The event is open to the public and should be a great evening of fundraising and holiday fun. The deadline to file nomination paperwork to run for the city council for a 2-year term starting in April is Tuesday, January 7th at 5 p.m. Still plenty of time for those considering running for this to obtain, complete, and submit the required paperwork. Note that there is a fifth Tuesday in December, so our next city council meeting will take place on Tuesday, January 7th at 7 p.m. And I just want to take a quick note. I know that this packet was gigantic and it was really a lot for the council and the public to review. But I just want to take a minute and recognize our city staff who prepared all of this content, which includes research and all of the work that goes into a packet like this. It was a really heavy lift. If anybody was working around me last week, understood the stress level in my office. But I'm really proud of the work that went in and the end result. So just wanted to take a moment and say that. And of course, on behalf of the city council and city staff, I wish everybody a safe and happy and healthy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Unfinished business, item 9A, review and possible action relating to a development agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and Intrepid Investments for the Ridgeview Estates subdivision. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. So we have, the city council did take a look at this at a meeting on December 3rd. The Economic Development Commission also took a look at this at their meeting on December 11th and recommended that the city council approve it, subject to any final minor edits by the city and the developer here. I will go through a little bit of this, and then I will introduce our the developers who are here today. So I will just start by saying that the city's been working with the folks from Intrepid Investments on the development of 35 of the city's 75 acres that we own along Banker Road since May of 2024. This development agreement represents months of negotiation over responsibilities and tax increment financing incentives for the multifamily piece. The city is offering a pay-go tax increment financing package, including a total of $3.3 million in returned tax increment between 2027 and 2041, based on a minimum of $14 million in added value in TID number 9. If that assessed value is in excess of the $14 million, the payback may be accelerated, but no more than that total incentive package. So if in the future there's another multifamily building, then the developers will have an opportunity to negotiate an amendment with the city for additional incentives. The portion north of the what was called Trillium Drive that the council just vacated, but we will plat with the preliminary plat. There will be the owner occupied piece will be on the north side of that, and the developer will pay the city $18,000 per residential unit to assist in defraying the cost of the public infrastructure there. So there's lots of other details in the development agreement. We can certainly go through those if the council has questions about those. But at this time, I would just like to introduce Craig and Randy, our members of our development team, and just let them introduce themselves and say a couple words about this project.
Good evening. Thanks for having me back. I believe I was here sometime shortly after May that Rebecca mentioned. My name is Craig Sedonico. I'm president of American Construction Services and American Architectural Group. Also a partner with Randy in Intrepid Investments. We're happy to still be here. It's been some months of great discussion and a little bit of debate, but really consistent progress forward. So we're happy to see I'd say dirt being moved, but I'm sure you've all seen it. It's a little beyond some dirt being moved. It looks awesome out at the site. We can see a retention pond and roads being put in and utilities today. It's been a great journey, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. And here's Randy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. Looking forward, hopefully after tonight, a partnership between Craig and I and your community to come in and build some quality housing, and look forward to the journey going forward. So thank you for having us. We're here to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
We are also happy to have you back here. Are there any questions for our guests?
Just have one question, but it might be more for the city staff. With the 14 million, is that including the owner occupied stuff, or is that just the multifamily unit?
That's just the first multifamily building. Yeah, there are additional milestones for value to meet on the single family side. And those are included in the development agreement. I shouldn't say single family, in the owner occupied portion. That's included in the development agreement and included in the pro forma. But that is, the TIF incentive is not based on the owner occupied value, only the multifamily value.
Craig, Randy, I'm wondering, we haven't had a new apartment building project in Fort Atkinson in many years. So I get asked a lot about that. Can you talk about, I know there's a rendering in the packet, but about the type of development that you're envisioning for that project?
Sure. Fresh in our minds because we were meeting with my design staff yesterday and this morning, the day before yesterday, about tweaking the plans. But first building's 87 units. We have a few studio apartments. I want to say it's 5 or 6 studios, something like that. The majority of the units are 1 and 2 bedrooms. Lobby area, underground parking. So there will be 1 stall of underground parking for each unit. So 2 bedroom units would have 1 underground parking stall and 1 surface parking stall. In the parking garage will be a car wash bay. There's a pet wash bay for people who need to get fluffy or spot clean. We'll have a little bike charging area for electric bikes and some tools for working on bikes. Surface parking lot, we will have roughed in for electric car charging stations. Some of our facilities and hotels, there's a demand for that, and some there isn't. So we have it roughed. If there is a demand for it, we can install them pretty easily. Walking into the main lobby area, the manager's office will be front and center. There's a parcel delivery room for Amazon and UPS type deliveries. Coffee nook area and a sitting area to wait for visitors. Second and third floor common areas. We have a community room. We do have an area for workstations. So people that are working from home that don't feel like working literally from their kitchen table, will have a place to go and take a conference call. Also a small table if there's a small meeting that needs to be handled. The community room's large enough comfortably for 25 to 30 people. A living room set up, big screen TV for football games and other things, along with an island area and kitchen for crock pots, and there'll be a refrigerator there, sinks and whatnot for hosting parties. Third floor is the fitness center with a yoga stretching area, and I'm forgetting one piece. Actually, I think the workstation room is off the yoga room possibly, but amenities that we found to be valuable. Actually, the yoga was something brought up on one of my prior developments that we didn't do and we wish we did. So if our management organization will likely, depending on demand, have a yoga instructor come in a day a week or every other week, and residents will be able to utilize that. So it sounds like a neat amenity for those that need to increase their flexibility.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds like a place I'd like to live someday, maybe. So, no, that's great. Yeah. No, really appreciate the partnership and the investment you guys are making here in Fort Atkinson, and I think this is going to be a win-win. And I have no doubt that building's going to lease up very quickly, just based on what I hear about demand in the marketplace right now.
Be happy to be back here talking about building number 2.
And I wanted to ask about that. What do you have sort of like, what are the benchmarks you need to hit with unit 1 to proceed with the second?
It's approximately an 18-month build on building number 1. Our goal would be to have 100% of the units occupied before we actually finish the building, but typically we'll see 30 to 40% pre-lease. And I would say, we haven't talked about it specifically, but if we start hitting the 70%, 75% occupancy level, we'll be really heavily into the design of building number 2. Depending on the market, we're hoping that this reaches stabilization, certainly within 2 years of occupancy, hopefully faster than that. So I think it's very likely, if it's 18-month construction window and a 12 to 18-month ramp up period, that we'll be back here. I'll call it in the short term.
And then don't want to focus too much on a subsequent unit, but size-wise for that one, you're thinking similar to the
Yeah,
first one?
I would say anywhere from 70 to 90. We haven't really laid that out other than sticking a box on the paper and saying, all right, we know we can fit something of similar size. May have some additional amenities. We've talked about potentially pool area, depending on what the demand and what residents in building number one would need. That we can envision that if there are, we don't want to duplicate things, but if there are amenities that could be added that both building residents could take advantage of, we'd certainly consider that.
A couple of questions. I had somebody reach out, they're concerned about the 80 units, but, so be, I guess one question would be kind of, do you have an idea as to, lease price or, value of the units?
Mhm.
I know that's a big thing. Everybody always, what's affordable, what's not. And I know any community, affordable is different from one to another.
I would say. The market study done. Yep, so addressing the 80 units without, I think the market study was submitted to you and is public information, but arguably, let's just say for easy math, we end up building 160 units. That would accommodate about 50% of what the demand appears to be in the market. So it certainly building an 80 unit building, this is 87 units. This is not overpowering the market. We wouldn't be standing here if we thought this was something that the community wouldn't utilize and move into. We think our price ranges are anywhere from $1,000 a month, upwards of $1,800 a month for a corner 2-bedroom unit. So studios in that $1,000, maybe a hair north of that range. We're still working on final bidding for the project, so we'll be able to dial that in a little bit tighter, but that generally would be the range.
Okay. And then like management wise, is this something you guys would like own for that whole 15-year output you're thinking, or? I mean, I know how market can change over the years and
I mean, I think that's our intention.
their intention, you know.
Smirking because we had dinner across the street and we've worked together for a handful of years and grew up in the industry apart, and it takes more than two hands that count the developments we've been part of, and I can count on less than one hand the developments I've sold. So I can't say that we're going to own it for the rest of our lives.
No,
but
no,
our position has been
The intention is there to hold
Yeah.
on to it.
build quality and building communities that the demand is there, and it's a lot of work to get to this point. It's
Yeah.
hard to let go.
yeah, a lot of blood, sweat, equity that you don't want to just give up.
Yeah.
And, one constituent brought that up, I don't want, you to build it and then all of a sudden you're selling it to some
Totally
Joe
understand.
Schmo out of Chicago that,
That
is
hasn't been
gonna
our
be a
track
slumlord.
record.
Yeah.
Some of the pictures on my business website are the same pictures that were on there 10 and 15 years ago. We haven't let them go.
Okay, well, perfect.
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that you guys intend to stay here with it, so.
I will just note one item quickly. This is a market rate project, right? I just want to be clear on that. The city council has done a great job prioritizing affordable housing through this affordable housing fund, which we will then be able to assist developers in affordable projects. However, I just do want to be clear that this is a market rate development.
I've brought up to other meetings that, opening up more of these market rates does open the market to allow these lower valued places to either up their ante or lower their rates. So I'm glad to see this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't expect automobile manufacturers to manufacture, cheaper than what you can get a used car for. I wouldn't expect the same thing out of housing. Anyway, regardless, one of the questions I have, and it's kind of a weird question. I'm figuring out how to word this in my head, but would you say that your experience working with the city of Fort Atkinson and our staff has been generally on par with other jurisdictions? Or is there anything unique or weird that other cities are doing that we could learn from, or?
You guys have been superior.
Hold on.
I
Is
know
the
you're
developers
looking right-
agreement
yeah.
done? Is the developers agreement finished?
It's been a great journey. It's been a long journey to get here tonight. We're super excited to work in your community, work with all of you folks. And we look forward to a long relationship, maybe hopefully beyond this development. So we're happy and excited to be here. And your comment earlier, what I tend to see in other communities as a new project comes in, the existing product tends to reinvest into their product and therefore brings it up a standard or two. So it's a win-win situation, and I would see that happening here in your community as well.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like they got a lot to compete with what you're gonna be offering in this unit, so.
I can comment real briefly on the process. I've worked in many communities. I had the pleasure of serving in municipal government in your seats for a while. The communication has been open, it's been honest, it's been timely. I would say that your staff represented the municipality well as we were trying to represent ourselves well. So there was some, I wouldn't say there was headbutting, there was some tug of war a little bit, as there should be, but I've been at podiums just like this trying to convince communities of our product, and it's great to go into a community that wants our product. You want it, staff wanted it the way they wanted it. The development turned out to be the way staff wanted it, again, with some tug of war, but open, honest, timely communication is how I would summarize it.
I think we created a win-win situation, win-win-win for you, for us, and the community, so.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
needs to stick around at all? Okay, all right, thank you. Have a good night.
This time I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the development agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and Intrepid Investments for the Ridgeview Estate subdivision, subject to any final minor edits and exhibit updates by city staff and the developer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the development agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and Intrepid Investments for the Ridgeview Estates subdivision, subject to any final minor edits and exhibit updates by city staff and the developer. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thanks for joining us tonight, gentlemen. I look forward to seeing this come to life. Item 9B, review and possible action relating to proposals for recruitment services for the Public Works Director position. Manager Houseman.
Thank you. So at the November 19th meeting, the council authorized me to release a request for proposals for recruitment services for the Public Works Director position. As we have established, Mr. Sally is leaving. Tomorrow is his last day in the office. So the city set a deadline for those proposals for December 11th, which was part of the reason I was stressed out last week after having received 9 proposals to review and provide an analysis for the council last week. So I reviewed all those proposals using cost, process, timeline, additional materials submitted, and recruitment guarantees as the criteria. We also reviewed each firm's experience with the public sector within the field of public works and within the Wisconsin or Midwest network. While I did receive 9 proposals, I also actually received a 10th proposal over the weekend that was stuck in my quarantine, apparently prior to the deadline. However, that additional submission was not reviewed in the same way that these other 9 were. So the top 4 were included in the packet. Obviously, we knew this packet was going to be large, so I didn't put all 9 in for everybody to take a look at. Those top 4 were from McMahon Government Professional Solutions, or GPS, Public Administration Associates, or PAA, and MGT, which is formerly Gov HR. All 9 of the submissions are included in a table that's in the packet for your review, using just some data about the firm, and then again the cost, how they would invoice, the timeline for completing this project, additional materials, recruitment guarantee and any other notes from my review of those proposals. So of those top four, most had similar timelines, similar materials, most had a recruitment guarantee. However, the PAA stood out, in my opinion, for this project. Both from the cost perspective, they were the most cost effective of all of the proposals at $13,400. They also are very experienced public sector recruiting firm. They're based out of Whitewater. They've featured three partners who have significant local government experience. The lead, Kevin Bruner, was the public works director for Walworth County for some time, as well as the city manager for the city of Whitewater for quite some time as well. I did check references for PAA, I checked references specifically for public works recruitments within the last several years. It has been an exceptionally tight market. I did get that feedback that it was very challenging to find qualified candidates for these types of roles. And I would expect the same for the city. So part of what I included in the request for proposals as far as scope went was to really take a hard look at the job description as well as the salary range for this position. Let's see. This was not a budgeted expense. I will also mention they have a recruitment guarantee, public administration, PAA. I will mention two more things, actually. They do have a recruitment guarantee of 12 months that they would provide their expertise in an additional recruitment if the person in that position left within the first 12 months of employment. Additionally, Mr. Brunner has worked for Fort Atkinson before. He was the recruiter. PAA was the recruiter, and he was specifically the person who managed the 2021 recruitment for the city manager. And he did a nice job, if I do say so myself. I just want to throw that out there.
No bias there, right?
No bias. Well, I mean, actually, no. But I'm familiar with most of these recruiters. Obviously, a lot of them are professionals in the field, and I do have a lot of contacts with many of these recruiters. So it's not just this is the one I know. They are extremely qualified to perform this work, and their price is very economical. Like I said, this was not budgeted. However, we do have we will have some remaining funds in both our city engineer position, as that has remained vacant for several months, and before that, the assistant city engineer position was vacant. In addition, the public works director is paid through the utilities as well as the general fund. And so I would propose paying for these recruitment services through the engineering salaries account as well as the water and sewer salaries accounts for a total of $13,400. So staff recommends that the city council accept the proposal from Public Administration Associates LLC for recruitment services for the public works director position for $13,400 and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and begin that recruitment process. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Two questions. One, did you kind of ask them a little bit about when we find this position, what the ability would be to help with a city engineer position if need be at all, or?
I think that I would like to work with the new public works director
Okay.
on that city engineer position. So I didn't want to do a double recruitment or anything of that nature, because I do think that there's an opportunity with a new public works director to look at structure of the department. And I would want that person to have a say in how that recruitment goes.
Okay.
But I do anticipate getting some assistance, at least on the job description side, from this firm.
Okay. And then my only other comment is, the math is bothering me with the table that you put out. The $4,466.67 divided three ways comes up with a penny extra.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It must be a rounding error, because that is an Excel document. I don't trust myself to do math. I let Excel do it for me. So I must be a rounding error.
So one of the accounts is gonna be a penny shorter than
Yes.
the other one. so.
Mm. Catch. No, I was impressed that you got 9 or apparently 10 submissions. I was surprised that, you know, some of these firms are from, you know, California, New Jersey. I mean, it's great that they're interested here, but I do think, you know, we have some uniqueness to how local government operates in Wisconsin. I think having a firm that kind of understands some of those ins and outs is valuable, especially for a position like this, which will be challenging as you acknowledge. So I have no problem with the recommendation for PAA to conduct the search. And yes, they did do a good job the last time they went for us.
I do appreciate too the diligence you did in pre-screening all of those options in front of us today. And would agree, as a member of the public at the time that it was asked to be a small part of the interviews of the people, and I remember being particularly impressed the way it was run by PAA. So they were good help for us several years ago, and expect the same today.
I'll move to approve the proposal from Public Administration Associates LLC for recruitment services for the Public Works Director position for $13,400 and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and begin the recruitment process.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposal. Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion is to approve the proposal from Public Administration Associates LLC for recruitment services for the Public Works Director position for $13,400 and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and begin the recruitment process. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is approved. New business, item 10A, review and possible action relating to the repair of the 2020 Dodge Grand Caravan for the taxi program at a cost of $22,476.78 from Sheppy's Auto Body with a 10% contingency. Director of Public Works, Selly.
Thank you. So this vehicle was T-boned a few months ago, not the fault of our driver. The insurance took a look at it and offered to offered us two options. One was to repair the vehicle, or the second was to total the vehicle out. The odd way that the contract is set up for the city's taxi does not allow us to use any funds from the taxi program fares that are received to pay for new taxis. However, it does allow us to pay for the repair of existing taxis. The city's goal has always been, and we've done a pretty good job of it, maintaining the taxi service at a zero net cost to the city. So that means that the federal government subsidies coupled with the fare revenue covers the cost of the taxi service. So in repairing this taxi, we have an opportunity to recoup any additional funds that may, or expenses, I should say, that may come out of this repair within the taxi program. We're looking currently projecting about a $5,000 surplus at the end of the year for the taxi, so that gives us a little bit of a cushion. So the choice was made to repair this vehicle instead of to total this vehicle out. If we totaled the vehicle out, we would be about $8,000 net and costs to the city from the general fund when we went to replace that vehicle sometime in 2025 or 26. So that's the theory behind the approach to fix the taxi. We had spoken, I should say, Sarah Wyatt in our office can't be lauded enough for her work on this. She spoke with Sheppy's, and they did indicate that it's not uncommon to get behind the curtain, so to speak, of these vehicles and see that there are some additional repairs that are needed, thus the 10% request above their estimated cost for repair. So the insurance company should cover nearly all of the cost of repair, and then that $5,000 that I mentioned that we're projecting in surplus for the taxi program should make up for anything that we find later on that might be wrong with the vehicle. It's a bit of a complicated story. I hope I didn't complicate it more, but I'd be happy to answer any questions associated with this.
And I have a question. I'm not very familiar with auto insurance claims. It didn't look like a totaled vehicle from the pictures, or at least what my layman estimation would be. Is that just kind of standard practice for the insurance company in these types of situations to declare it totaled, or is there other
Yeah.
intricacies?
I spoke with Councilman Johnson actually about this, who has some experience in this
wish he was here.
field. But the deploying of the airbags, I guess, was the main thing. So repairing those and I guess getting them back into a serviceable situation is usually a pretty high dollar value associated with these things.
Got it. No, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Selly?
For a motion?
Okay, I move to approve the repair of the 2020 Dodge Grand Caravan for the taxi program at a cost of $22,476 from Sheppy's Auto Body with a 10% contingency to be managed by the city staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the repair. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the repair of the 2020 Dodge Grand Caravan for the taxi program at a cost of $22,476 from Sheppy's Auto Body with a 10% contingency to be managed by city staff. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10B, review and possible action to authorize the city manager to execute the 2025 joint powers agreement with Jefferson County for the county 911 emergency system.
Thank you. So this is an annual agreement that, that Jefferson County likes us to take action on every year for the county 911 emergency system. So the executing the joint powers agreement will allow for the city of Fort Atkinson emergency vehicles to respond outside of their jurisdictions with when dispatched, and it also allows for other emergency service providers to provide service, within the city when dispatched through that county's county 911 system. So this is due to the fact that the county has a 911 system as Jefferson County, per statute, Jefferson County does have. So there's no cost to this agreement, and staff recommends that the city council authorize myself as the city manager to execute the joint powers agreement for 2025.
Seeing how this is normal and we've done it every year, I would move to approve the city manager to execute the 2025 joint powers agreement with the Jefferson County for the 911 emergency system.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. Any discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to authorize the city manager to execute the 2025 joint powers agreement with Jefferson County for county 911 emergency system. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Item 10C, review and possible action relating to an amendment to the agreement for solid waste and recyclable collection and disposal between the city of Fort Atkinson and GFL Solid Waste Midwest LLC. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. The city has an agreement for the collection of solid waste and recyclable materials with GFL. The original agreement was made in August of 1998 with Superior Services, and it has been assigned multiple times to other solid waste and recycling collection companies. That original agreement, as well as an amendment several years ago, are all in your packet for review. The current agreement dictates the allowable increase to the contract cost for the city, which equates to 1/2 of the annual consumer price index, or CPI. While this has been very positive for the city over the past several years, especially when inflation has been high, it has not been positive for GFL. And GFL, just like other public and private sector organizations, has seen a significant increase in costs for employee salaries and benefits, equipment, and other items. And further, while recycling used to be a source of revenue for collection contractors, that market has dropped almost entirely, and now contractors have to pay to get rid of those items collected. So in addition to those cost pressures on GFL, we've also received an ample number of complaints from residents on customer service issues over the last several years. We do keep a log of those complaints. I don't have access to it right now, but we do keep a log of those complaints and we send them to GFL. And GFL also keeps a log of those complaints about mainly about missed collection, missed bulk collection, and messes created through automated collection. The number of complaints does seem to grow in summer months and then taper off in the fall. However, those bulk collection complaints remain pretty consistent over time. In April of this year, GFL requested a 9% increase in the contract cost. And per the contract, the city's general inability to raise those kinds of funds in the middle of the year, the city rejected that request. Again, in November, GFL asked for a significant 9% increase in the contract cost. So we did sit down and meet with Jason Johnson from GFL to discuss the customer service issues as well as the contract cost and other elements of the contract. It should be noted that this contract has about a 3.5 year-ish, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, about a 3.5 year lead time for removal of ourselves from the contract. So if we wanted, if the city said, we no longer want to be in this contract, we would provide GFL with notice, and then 3.5 years from now, we would be done with that contract. And then we would be able to pursue a new contract. Of course, one of the issues with such a long lead time is, I mean, it's good for the company, right? So they can get their affairs in order. It might be reasonable for the city because we could do a full request for proposal process and really make sure we get the best collection candidate for the next contract. However, it doesn't typically help customer service when you have 3.5 years of a contract with a company that doesn't that may or may not be in the running for the next contract. So through some negotiation with GFL, the city and GFL came to an agreement on an amendment to the contract. So there's a couple elements that would be amended through the addendum or amendment that is before the city council tonight. And that is, the first is that the agreement will terminate on December 31st, 2025. So that would give staff a year to prepare a request for proposal for collection services with the goal of having a new contract in place by January 1st. There's nothing in the agreement or amendment that disallows GFL from providing a proposal for services for that new contract. Number two, bulk pickup is limited to 1 unit. Currently, it is 2 units, and residents must call and schedule the pickup with GFL customer service. Currently, the contract allows for 2 units, as I mentioned, and the items to be picked up, they do not require the customer to call, which, as one can imagine, creates issues for the contracting company when it's 1 week out of the month, and if there are no sections of the city on particular days, then it's really just a little bit of a free-for-all. So the change benefits GFL, and I also think it will reduce the number of complaints relating to items left on the terrace for property owners for weeks at a time sometimes. GFL, another change is that GFL will provide distributable materials detailing the definition of bulk items and will assist in communication to the city's residents for this bulk change. It will be a significant change from the current practice, so that communication will be very important. And then fourth, the 2025 cost of the contract will increase by 2%. So the current contract, which is tied to CPI, CPI was 2.6%, so that increase would be 1.3%. The 2% increase was included in the 2025 budget during the budgeting process, as staff did not know the exact CPI during the budget process, so we did include 2%. So that is baked into the budget. And just for reference purposes, if those don't know how much a garbage and recycling contract costs, I will tell you. The 2024 budget for that was $771,000, $771,116.40. A 2% increase was included in the 2025 budget, as I mentioned, for a total of $786,538.73. So I will also mention that it is more than extremely likely that when we submit a request for proposals, we will get at least one proposal, potentially 2 or 3 proposals. It is extremely likely that those will be significantly higher than the contract we are leaving. I just want everybody to be clear on that. We will not have a contract that's tied to 1/2 of CPI ever again in the future. So I just want that to be clear. The city is, as we all know, is limited through how much we can raise property taxes through the levy limit statutes. As such, we will be tasked with coming up with other ways to pay for this expected and important service. Such options include removal of the charges from the tax levy and placing them on the bi-monthly utility bill, or removing the charges from the tax levy and placing them on the annual tax bill as a separate line item. So staff and the city council, if this is approved, we will work through that process in 2025 to have the new how that will be charged starting in 2026. So staff does recommend that the city council approved the amendment to the agreement for solid waste and recyclable collection and disposal services between the city and GFL Solid Waste Midwest LLC, and direct the city manager to execute on behalf of the city. I will note 2 quick things. Council President David Lesko here was present with the city staff for the meeting with GFL and has been engaged and involved in the negotiation of this amendment. I will also mention that the city council has reviewed this matter when the contract was reviewed in a closed session several weeks, if not maybe a month ago. So this is not the first time the council has been made aware of this. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
And I would just add on that first, and I've been really impressed the way staff has participated, come to the table in the discussions that we've had, but also recognizing that this is a quarter century of a contract that, like, over time has become unworkable for, for the garbage collect and recycling collector. So it's time to bring it up to current time. It will present some challenges going forward, but hopefully also improves the service level.
Someone might know the numbers better than I do, but I guess putting this into perspective, like on average, how much per household? Taking a look at the contract cost divided by number of households, 70, $100. That might be wrong, I might be way off, but yeah. The reason why I ask, I think, is just something just to consider of putting things into perspective of the service that is provided and the cost that we're currently paying is generally, reasonable. Like if for some reason, if I had too much garbage in my house, right, like I'd be willing to pay some money to make sure it got taken away,
Right.
But then if you take a look at, okay, if I'm maybe only paying $100 a year, I'm like, I'm getting one heck of a bargain based on, what other options there may be, whether it be taking it to a local dump, et cetera. I think it just might be good to put into perspective, like, there's a commodity type service that, when you take a look at it at a broad picture, the increase may be worth, the increase in future years may be worth it once you consider how much it is per household.
I will also note that given that it's on the general property tax levy right now, every property owner in the city is paying for this service, and not every property owner is receiving the benefit. For example, commercial or industrial properties that need a dumpster. So they pay through their property taxes for a portion, whether it be, small, but they pay for the service and they are not receiving the benefits. So this does adjust, the cost to those receiving the benefit.
So going back through stuff, you sent us information about City of Jefferson's contract. They renewed with John's Disposal at the time, starting at $17.20 per residential unit per month, and $19.70 per commercial unit per month for garbage service. So
Yeah,
that
that
kinda
does,
answers your question as to what going rate is now.
Our invoice for, it was dated November, so it could reflect the October collection. We had over 4,300 properties that had collection.
yeah, I would not anticipate it would be more than, $200 or so a year for an average, residential property. But it would certainly be part of the conversation when the council decides what we want to do with it, right? Does the council want to put it on the tax bill as a separate charge, make it slightly less and put it on the utility bill? Or is that utility bill just not the right, mechanism for it? So I think either way, the majority of the cost would be removed from the levy. So there would be some savings, whether or not the equivalent, it likely wouldn't be equivalent for the reason I explained before. More taxpayers are paying for the service right now. But those who benefit from it would be paying for it, which is more fair.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we're looking at this. I'm glad we've worked this out at least for the next year. I think GFL tries hard, but they've had, I know I hear about it, we all hear about it, the service complaints and service issues, and I think putting it out to RFP at least shows that we're looking at options and we're not just staying with the same horse that we've been riding for a while, so to speak. I do personally like the idea of removing these charges from the tax bill, and I understand that's going to be something a future city council looks at, but I personally like that, either putting on the utility bill or the end of the year tax bill. I think those are attractive options.
I want to make sure I understand, so the amendment and how that bumps up against the communication that went out in the tax bill just last week for bulk pickup.
Yes, so I did review the communication that went in the tax bill before it went out in the tax bill from GFL, even though we did not get a proof of it prior to getting, 6,000 copies of it. I did review that communication to ensure that there was nothing on it that would change. So the information that's on it is the bulk is still being picked up once a month. It's still the third week or whenever, the third week of the month on your normal day. They did not address calling and they did not address the number. So it was generic enough that it is still accurate. But and obviously there will be additional communication needed, and that's part of the amendment that GFL is responsible for providing that definition of what bulk is, as well as some distributable materials for communication to our residents, because it will be a change.
Okay, thanks for that.
I move to approve the amendment of the agreement for solid waste and recyclable collection and disposal between the city of Fort Atkinson and GFL Solid Waste Midwest LLC, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract on behalf of the city.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amended agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the amendment to the agreement for solid waste and recyclable collection and disposal between the city of Fort Atkinson and GFL Solid Waste Midwest LLC, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract on behalf of the city. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Item 10D, review and possible action relating to an agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and the Fort Atkinson firefighters Local 580 for 2025. Fire Chief Peterson.
Good evening. Here to discuss the agreement between the City of Fort Atkinson and Fort Atkinson Firefighters Local 580. I'll give you a brief overview on the process and highlight the specifics of the contract and explain why this agreement is a significant and constructive step forward for the city and our firefighters. On March 13th of this year, Fort Atkinson firefighters initiated their effort to unionize. This wasn't unexpected, and I don't believe a sign of strife on the department, but a maturation process that most full-time departments, almost all full-time departments go through. The city recognized the local just a week later on March 22nd, and that was a demonstrating a willingness to work with them collaboratively. At that time, we initiated a contract that we would negotiate in the fall of this year. And that contract would not include any wage adjustments other than the planned cost of living adjustments coming this January 1st. We started negotiations on September 16th. Representing the city was the city manager, city council president, division chief Lawrence, and myself. We also agreed that we would at least start negotiations without legal representation. And I'm pleased to say that we were able to end it that way also. This proved beneficial to move the negotiations along and was a significant cost savings for both sides. We had 6 meetings in total over the 3 months, and on December 1st, we obtained a tentative agreement. Local 580 has since ratified the contract with some small clarifications, and that's why you received an updated contract with some more clarifications on a couple items that they had questions about. This is a 1-year contract, and then in the fall of 25, we'll reconvene to discuss wage adjustments and then a multi-year contract. To highlight some of the contract parts, we adjusted the time off classification and considering them all PTO, so we were able to simplify that. And we recognized and corrected a deficiency in the number of PTOs our firefighters had compared to the industry standards. We adjusted the sick time bank and accruals to meet the unique shift of the 4896 our firefighters work instead of the traditional 40-hour week. We also recognize prior city employees that work for other departments that migrate to the fire department, and we're able to keep their earned benefit time. There was a wage disparity with our captains where they were earning less than some of the members they were supervising, so we were able to make a small adjustment to that. And I think most importantly, the city remained in full control of the operation of the department, including staffing, work rule, department practices, and personnel decisions. And having negotiated multiple contracts from both the union side and the city side, and reviewing contracts in the area, you'll see bloated contracts where locals gained a lot of control over the work conditions and hours and really handcuff chiefs on some of the things that they want to try to accomplish. And one of my main goals is to retain all operational control of the department, and I believe we were very successful to that. So I want to thank the leadership of the firefighters local for their willingness to work with us and their negotiation in good faith. Also wanted to thank the city manager and council president and division chief Lawrence for your efforts and to get this done. As I mentioned, we had a number of goals in there, and the operational control of the department was my main goal. And secondly, to make sure the contract was set up in a way that as we negotiate future contracts, we are in a strong position to represent the rights of the city and the citizens. And having seen a number of contracts and negotiated the first contract from the union side, small little things put in the contract that don't mean much early on end up really handcuffing a department later. So we are able to recognize those and avert those. And lastly, negotiations are adversarial by nature. And without good faith negotiations, they can have a lot of ill effects going forward with the firefighters. And I'm really pleased to say they feel like their needs were met, and their willingness to work with us was met. And likewise, we felt like the needs of the city and the citizens was met, and we have a very good relationship with the firefighters afterwards. So I think it was a win all the way around. So with that, staff recommends City Council approve the proposed contract between the City of Fort Atkinson and the Fort Atkinson Firefighters Local 580.
Thank you, Chief. I would just add to that it is not easy to create something like this from scratch, and you and your leadership team and city manager did a magnificent job getting us to a resolution over 6 meetings. It wasn't easy, but it always remained productive. And I think it is key too that we have maintained a good relationship with the bargaining team on the other side of the table, much as has been my experience in how we deal with our police union as well. So I'm glad of that. I'm also really super happy that we've got a good base to work on the next successor agreement.
Yeah, thank you for that. And to put things in perspective, 6 meetings is really remarkable to have a contract. And there's many examples out there that these initial contracts go years and still aren't agreed upon and have lasting effects of ill will and aggravation on both sides. So thank you for that. And we're very pleased with the end product here.
Great. Any questions for the chief?
I just congratulate you and the city team on a job well done here. I think, you know, we knew this was going to come eventually, and I'm pleased to see that, you know, within 9 months or so, we had a agreed upon contract. I think that's an example of how collective bargaining can work, and I think does work to the benefit of not only the firefighters and the staff, but the community as a whole. So I really appreciate all the effort that was put into this.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Or if not, would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the agreement between the City of Fort Atkinson and the Fort Atkinson Firefighters Local 580 for 2025, subject to ratification of the contract in its entirety by the Fort Atkinson Firefighters Local 580.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agreement between the City of Fort Atkinson and the Fort Atkinson Firefighters Local 580 for 2025, subject to ratification of the contract in its entirety by the Fort Atkinson Firefighters Local 580. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thanks, Chief. Item 10E, review and possible action relating to police department equipment and upfitting order for 2025 squad car purchase. Police Chief Bump.
Hello, everyone. So for 2025 capital improvement, we have a project set up for the purchase of 2 new squad cars. I was here at the last council meeting where you approved the order of the 2 vehicles itself, which get us moving toward the completion of that project in 2025. We have $138,000 set aside for the entire project. So beyond the car order, when those cars come, the extra needed equipment takes that vehicle from a vehicle to an emergency vehicle, and that's what all this equipment is. All of the equipment, light bars, push bumpers, prisoner transport seats, partitions, the siren, all of that stuff is what I'm here today to get pre-approval to do the initial order, locking in all of our current pricing before costs go up in 2025. So we can order all that stuff now through our upfitter and have it arriving and hopefully arrive around the same time that the squad cars get here. And that's our plan, is so we can most efficiently and effectively get those vehicles on the road in 2025. So I'm looking to gain approval. I have quotes in the memo that show Squad 1 and Squad 2. You can see that they're identical because they need all the identical equipment to make them a full squad car. All of our squad cars are always set up to be as identical as we possibly can make them. So if officer is driving a squad car today and he has to take a different car tomorrow, when he gets in it, he will feel like he's in the exact same car, out of safety and memory and that trained reaction to where things are. So that is our goal. In years past, you haven't seen this request. If you remember at the last council meeting, we talked about how the squad cars are new, a new style, and the squads that we're replacing are of an older body style. So we can't recycle as much of the equipment and take it out and put it into the new car. So in years past, I've come to you and said, looking for approval to order a squad car and all the equipment, and I won't exceed this amount. But unfortunately, with this transition, that dollar amount is a little bit more than it has been in years past because we need to buy more equipment because of the new body styles. So that's why I'm coming back, and it's two separate things. The purchase price of all that equipment obviously exceeds those threshold points that the city manager wants us to come before you to make sure we're doing everything right and get approval from you. So right now I'm looking for approval to move forward with that order, get everything on order, not to receive or pay for anything until 2025 in the amount of $41,992.42. There still are some other things that will occur after those cars come, but in the end, the project will be below that 138 or 138,000 project. This is just for that next part of it. And I can answer any questions.
Does this include the graphic design?
No, the graphics are different. So the graphics will be done at different times and they'll be the last thing that we do. So I didn't include that in here, and those costs will be under the threshold points where I can just go and get it done when it needs to be done. So individually, it's right around $4,700 to do both cars, but they'll be billed individually and probably a few weeks apart as well. So I won't come back for the approval for that. But just know that after we spend this money and buy the squads, there'll still be a little bit left over to do the graphics, but it will still be under that 138.
So I'm assuming that these will both be fully marked squads and not
Yes.
unmarked.
Yep. And they'll also have light bars on top. So you see a little bit of variety with our fleet. You have unmarked with no lights on them. You have a fully marked with no light bar on top, but all interior and edge lights. And then you also have our other marked squads that have an actual light bar on top. These two that are coming will have the full light bar on top. So we have more of a dynamic and variety of vehicles.
Is there any advantage to having the interior light versus a light bar, or?
Yeah, there is. So one of the biggest benefits is your ability to have takedown lights, alley lights, and scene lights. So with the light bars we have, we can transition the color to white light on all around the entire vehicle. And then also have spotlights that come off the top and on the front, which we call takedown and alley lights.
Okay.
So it's good to have a variety.
I believe you mentioned at the last meeting that you'll be retiring some squad cars or repurposing them throughout the city.
Yes.
And the question I have then is any of the equipment on the inside of that, will that stay there, or does that have to be taken out when we repurpose it, and can that be sold? Is there any resale value to that?
So some of the equipment we keep and move into another vehicle if we can. Some of it, when it transitions from a marked patrol car to maybe an unmarked car on the administrative side, a lot of stuff we still keep in there if we can't reuse it in another car. And then some stuff when we hand it off to like the fire department, sometimes we can kind of talk about like, is any of this stuff you can use so we get more life out of it and you don't have to spend money on it. So we try to have good conversations that way. A lot of times our equipment, by the time we are done with it and it's pulled out of the car, it doesn't have second market value to anybody. So a lot of times it's metal that's recycled. If we can move it on to auction, we try to though.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question.
Any other questions for the chief?
This makes sense. I'll move to approve the police department equipment and upfitting order for the 2025 squad cars purchase at a cost not to exceed $41,992.42 from the outlay account for squad car and equipment.
Second.
We have motion and a second to approve the purchase. Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion is to approve the police department equipment and upfitting order for the 2025 squad cars purchased at a cost not to exceed $41,992.42 from the outlay account for squad car and equipment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. Item 10F, review and possible action on 7 construction package contracts for the Hummerson's Pond Garage Shelter in an amount not to exceed $292,939.66. We have Director of Parks and Recreation Dayton with us.
Thank you and good evening. So some of you I did see at the groundbreaking event. So thank you for coming out to that. But I'm coming back to really, I guess, solidify this project. Back in January, we had received notice that we had gotten the grant for this project, which also required the Class 2 public bid notice. That bid notice or the requirements for that were followed, and we did push out through the paper and then also on the city's website. And then following that, we did close on October 11th. After the completion of that, there were some packages that were not filled, and so we did start to solicit some other vendors to fulfill those requirements for completing the project. So, and then also we did make some amendments to the project to I guess move some components around and make sure that we can still find something that can be constructed through the various vendors, and then also receive different bids that I had already gotten from local businesses. So part of this was that the 7 bids came in. None of those, we didn't receive multiple bids, but I do want to note that we did receive multiple requests for information. So it did receive some traction there. We just didn't actually have enough businesses come through to give us multiple bids in any package. Of those, they're all the contractors do come from the Jefferson County area, and some of them we have actually worked with in the past as a city and as a department. So we do have some really good relationships here. I kind of heading back to the split, how we did make a few changes to this. We did take the garage doors and the garage or the concessions windows out, and we kept that or on its own line. But then we did take the 3 walk-through doors, and we reached out to the contractor that bid on the building project or the carpentry to see if they would be willing to roll that into their package, and they did agree to that, and it was an acceptable quote for us. So we did make that modification. And then lastly, I do want to note too that the masonry package did receive a bid, but it was after the fact. So we didn't really have to solicit too much for that. It just came in a little bit later. So the first table that I've included in the memo too, this project did start further back. I remember telling you about that initially, but the Community Foundation actually committed $45,000 back in 2022. And that same thing with Friends of Hoverson's Pond. That was a matching grant. And so the project had changed scope since then. But after receiving the $100,000 grant, we were able, or because we were able to receive that much from the Department of Natural Resources, was because of the scope of the project change. We added the pavilion, we added the concession stand, and then also, or I don't want to say concessions, a serving area, and then also a water fountain too. So that the revenue that we had secured isn't full of what or doesn't complete everything that we do need to do, but that will come with more fundraising, and then also a commitment from the Friends of Hoverson's Pond. So I do have outlined here the package totals and then all the businesses that did bid on this project. You can check those out. In all, the total came out to $292,939.66. It is worth noting too that one of the vendors also, Boss Design Builders, they did include a donation to the Friends of Hoverson's Pond after the completion of the project at $25,000. So with the grant money and then the additional funding from the community grants, the Friends of Hoverson's Pond have continued to fundraise for money. They do have more money in the bank, and they have not necessarily gone back to some of those other funding sources that could potentially provide more for them. Yeah, below here in the second table here, I do have kind of the full scope of the project and all the expenses, including a contingency. There are other costs associated with it that we don't necessarily bid out, which would be the gas meter relocation and then also electric install through We Energies. So there are some other costs that wouldn't necessarily be accounted for through like the bidding process, but in all, that grand total would come out to $325,733.63. Let's see here. So if, in any sort of manner, if we weren't able to have the entire project completed and there were some future costs later, the Friends of Homerson's Pond have been great partners. They have always committed to this project, committed to that area. And they would be willing to obviously kick back from that 25,000 if there were some other future costs. We do have a current contract, which I included in the packet, that was presented at the time of the grant. And we have, we're working on an additional contract just to make sure that we have something that's up to par with this project scope as it is today versus what it was back in 2022, where it was just the garage facility.
And Ben, sorry, just to clarify on that point. So when you say the contract, you mean an agreement between the city and the Friends of Homerson's Pond that they will be fundraising for 100% of the cost of this project?
Thank you. Yes. So again, they've been great partners and have always committed to this, and so we don't we want to make sure that we continue that relationship with them to see this to completion. So just so you know, that we do have a completion date that we're shooting for, which is April 30th, weather permitting. Obviously, so far the weather has been nice, and we've been able to break ground already. So with that, staff does recommend that City Council award the contract for this Homerson's Pond Garage Shelter Construction Project to the contractors listed in this memo for a total amount not to exceed $292,939.66. Also noting that the total of $325,733.63 does also include the contingency in gas and electric estimates. Will also be the responsibility of the Friends of Homerson's Pond through grants, donations, and then additional fundraising as well. I can take any questions.
I'm just gonna note that I will abstain from this just due to the family conflict of the being a contractor involved.
It's not a question. I just think it's awesome that people who have an idea here in the city can make something happen, raise the funds for it. And this is done through countless hours of, just great residents and community members, and all the time that they put into to make something like this happen. So,
yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Just great people. And it's amazing to see the interaction, and anytime they can tell the story of that location and the previous building and the current one, it just gives you goosebumps. So it's pretty incredible.
Sure makes it easier to get behind a project like this of this dollar amount when the funding sources are a DNR grant, the community foundation, and then the Friends of Homerson's Pond themselves. I mean, it kind of blown away by projects like these that come forward, and there's a complete funding source for it.
Yeah, I can't really add anything more than that. It's just been really neat to see the revitalization of that site and over the past few years, and the renewed community use of that location. So I just think this is really an outstanding project. I'll go ahead and move to approve the 7 construction package contracts for the Homerson's Pond Garage Shelter in an amount not to exceed $292,939.66.
Second.
We have motion and second to approve the construction contracts. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve 7 construction package contracts for the Homerson's Pond Garage and Shelter in an amount not to exceed $292,939.66. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved, and with the note that Councilman Jekyll has abstained. Item 10G, review and possible action relating to 2025 capital outlay purchase of a 2025 F-150 truck, including Tommy Gate, liftgate, and safety light for the Parks and Recreation Department. Director Dayton.
All right, so we're trying to move on this vehicle so that we can ensure that it'll be here, when we can use it appropriately in the spring. So we have created or the previous staff have created a vehicle replacement plan, which is pretty impressive because prior to that, we had some vehicles that were pretty old, and thanks to our skilled staff, we were able to keep them running for as long as we could. But that doesn't always go into fuel efficiency or other safety features as well. So we are looking to purchase this vehicle with the 2025 capital outlay, but then also we are also looking to move that vehicle into our full-time fleet and then retain the 2003 Ford F-150 for our seasonal staff fleet. Part of that is because that at our peak staffing time, there are times where our staff will have to drop off somebody at a specific location, or if somebody forgets something, now all of a sudden that vehicle has to go and pick it up. It's inevitable, and so to help mitigate some of those inefficiencies, we're hoping to have this vehicle there that can be utilized when needed, when we need staff going in separate directions and going in a more efficient manner. So the new vehicle will, like I said, go into the full-time fleet, which is a positive because it will be more fuel efficient. We from a financial analysis side of things, we did reach out to several dealerships, and we got a quote from our local dealer, which we have had a longstanding relationship with, and then also the Ewald Automotive Group, which the city has worked with recently as well. Included in the quote was we also had several add-on items to be installed prior to the vehicle's deployment, which would be the Tommy Gate, the spray and bed liner, and then also the safety lights on the top of the vehicle. Griffin Ford did have a lower sale price at $44,994, and so that was good to see that they were very competitive. At the final sale, with the tax services, the service fees, and the registration, vehicle plates, those items, it does come out to $45,582. With this being a local dealer, we do want to maintain those relationships, and so I'd like to move forward with them. Additionally to this, though, we did have $43,500 budgeted originally. The cost of vehicles, much like anything else, has gone up quite a bit, including the other components of it. So I did reach out to other city staff, and we do have borrowed funding available to offset that difference. So we are able to cover that. And then lastly, from a staffing standpoint, if the vehicle that we are retaining does not get utilized as we would like to or want it to, we'll move on that and try to put it up for auction and get it off of our fleet. So staff recommends that the city council authorize the purchase of the 2025 Ford F-150 from Griffin Ford at a cost not to exceed 45,582 to be paid through the 2024-2025 borrowed funds. I can take any questions.
Are there any questions for Director Dayton? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a 2025 F-150 truck, including Tommy Gate lift gate and safety lights for the Parks and Rec Department at a cost not to exceed $45,582 from the 2024-25 borrowed funds.
Second.
The motion is second to approve the purchase. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the purchase of a 2025 F-150 truck, including Tommy Gate lift gate and safety light for the Parks and Recreation Department at a cost not to exceed $45,582 from the 2024-25 borrowed funds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10H, review and possible action relating to the purchase of furniture and fixtures for the Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project. Superintendent of Public Works, Williamson.
Yes, thank you. This has come before you a few times in the past. We've worked through this process to build this building, and it's very, very much underway. So the Public Works Operations Facility is underway, and because of that, we're looking at a move-in date of early February. This has facilitated the need for us to go out and take a look at furnishing the facility so that we don't have empty rooms to occupy. So what we've done is the department borrowing for this project included items to be provided by the city. These items were shop equipment and furnishings and other storage equipment and audio-video components. The design architect and the city worked together at the beginning of this process to budget an anticipated budget of $545,000 for all of these FF&E items, and this budget served as a placeholder for project borrowing. The Public Works Department worked in conjunction with the project architect Angus Young and released a public bid on November 18th of this year for these items, these FF&E items. Staff received 5 proposals from qualified firms. These items in this request included desks, chairs, tables, storage cabinets, shelving, and pallet racking, and other various storage items. These items will be used to prepare office spaces, the multipurpose room, break area, entry area, and storage closets, and the mezzanine storage areas for the addition of staff, equipment, and supplies, which is coming up very quickly. This is the second request for the FF&E category of the budget. The first came with the tire changer, and other additional requests will be coming forward. So the proposals we received range anywhere from a low bid of $83,153 up to a high bid of about $121,360, with one partial bid for storage items only. The low bidder was Emmons Business Interiors at $83,000 and can be compared to the other bidders on the table that's attached in there. I was very pleased with the bids. We released it again to these five individuals, and we received about 7 or 8 requests for the bid packet. So we did have a bunch that did take the bid packet, and we did receive 5 bids. So that's really good for us. The 2024 city budget does include capital improvement project borrowing for this public works facility, and the anticipated budget was, again, $545,000 for furniture, fixtures, and equipment to properly outfit the new facility. The department would like to complete this purchase utilizing the funds from the 2024 Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project capital borrow. And the table included in this shows where we're at with the amounts spent in the various areas respective to the FF&E budgets. Staff will continue to review the FF&E as needed. Obviously, we'll grow into the building as time goes on here. And we do anticipate other purchases coming before council in the future. So the recommendation from staff at this point is to award the contract to Emmons Business Group for the items included in their proposal for FF&E for the Public Works and Parks Operations Facility in the amount not to exceed $83,153.40. And I can take some questions from you if needed. The packet is quite detailed. There's a lot of information in there, but I felt it necessary to kind of show council, what we were looking at.
Appreciate the level of detail.
Thank you.
Tom, does that bid include installation, or is that a responsibility? It does.
Yes, so the installation is included within that bid pack, and it also includes shipping. So any kind of direct project shipping, it'll come to us.
That's what I thought. I just want to make
Mhm.
sure. I'm somewhat familiar with EBI. They seem to be a quality firm to work with, so.
Mhm.
I will move to approve the purchase of furniture and fixtures for the Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project at a cost not to exceed $83,153.40 per the 2024 Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project borrowing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I've done a lot of, or I've had to buy a lot of this type of equipment in a previous job, and I think that this is, I mean, comparatively, just from what I've experienced, like you're well priced as well. So
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, motion is to approve the purchase of furniture and fixtures for the Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project at a cost not to exceed $83,153.40 per the 2024 Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project borrowing. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Item 10I, review and possible action relating to the purchase of service shop equipment for the new Public Works and Parks Operations Facility.
Thank you
You'll have
again.
the floor.
So this is another step in the FF&E part of outfitting the project with the necessary equipment that we need to operate. This is a bit more entailed than the furnishings portion of it, as it deals with a little bit more expensive items to handle for the shop department, the mechanic shop. So the new facility requires that we install and maintain our own vehicle lifts. And in the beginning of this project, we talked about the need for the portable lifts that can be moved and stored, and enough of them in order to lift our heaviest vehicles. This is a fairly big ticket item, so we did put this out to bid. I worked with the lead mechanic, who's Don Knack, and we put this out for several different pieces of equipment in that category. And we did receive 3 proposals for these items. One of the proposals that came in was from Midwest Equipment Specialists out of McFarland. And the 2 other bids did come in from the same provider for the equipment that we requested from Lift Now out of Yorktown Heights, New York. Also included in the memo and purchase is a correction to the City Council's approved purchase of the Snap-on tilt-back heavy-duty tire changer that came before Council on the 20th of November. Ordered on the 20th. At the November 19th meeting, staff presented a memo to the council requesting the replacement of our failed tire changer with a new unit from Snap-on at the cost of $8,000, $8,618. Shortly thereafter placing and receiving the new unit, staff was informed of a misinterpretation of the proposal from Snap-on. And this falls pretty squarely on my shoulders. I included the Snap-on bid and proposal in your packet with my red line notes on that. What we'd like to do is the proposal attached shows the original bid document and then my red lines on that. And where the clarification needs to take place is that the bid that came in showed the discount amounts for the purchases and not the purchase price of each individual item, which is, in my opinion, very confusing. But at this point, we need to make this correction. So we did reach out to Snap-on and explain the situation very clearly to them, their lack of clarity. Unfortunately, they're unable to help us any further with the cost of this item. The amount that should have been addressed at the council in November is $11,901.60, which is a difference of $3,283.20. The proposals received for the additional shop equipment were $120,772.90 from Lift Now for these Molly lifts, which are the portable lifts, and the associated equipment to go along with those. $138,853 $138.92 from Midwest Equipment for the Sturtle Coney lifts and associated equipment, and a high bid of $141,000 and some change from Lift Now for Challenger lifts and the associated equipment. And then I attached all the bid documents for the Florida Council to review. Staff reviewed these bids pretty extensively between myself and the lead mechanic, Don Knack. We also reached out to Stoughton. They have several of these lifts that they have used and had in place since 2019. And staff, between those and the recommendations of Stoughton and the research that we have done here in-house, recommends a council approval of the middle bid, which is $138,853.92. This is based on Sturtle Coney's proven track record. They do stand out as the industry standard for this equipment. Also, their warranty and the fact that Midwest Equipment is located right in McFarland, very close for any service and warranty needs. And then also request that staff approve the revision to the previous approved Snap-on purchase order to reflect the proper amount of the sale of $11,901.60. And again, I attached all the tables for the staff or for the council to review. But in essence, this is just another step in the $545,000 placeholder that we had in the budget for FF&E items.
And still within the,
Yes, and so we're still well within the table. The table that's attached to that will show spending to date of that 545,000. And we do have some reserve balance available on the furnishing side of things, about 126,000. And with the approval of the previous memo, and then the equipment, should that be approved today, and along with the initial purchase of the tire changer, we'll still have a fund balance of $90,242 for shop equipment.
okay. Any questions?
This question with regards with the transmission jack, how often do you guys do work that would require pulling transmissions?
Often, well, I'll put it this way, much more often than I would prefer to have to do transmission work, but yeah, they do. And they do come in handy when you do have the units up on the lifts for other items that need to come out, but oftentimes you will find them under the trucks, especially when we do an in-frame rebuild.
I'll just note that, yes, you know, Midwest Equipment, we've dealt with them personally several times, and they're a very good company. They're very responsive, and when there is problems, they are willing to show up and make things right. So.
Yeah, we felt the same after talking with them.
I just agree with your comment earlier, Tom. The way they put their pricing on that document, it is very confusing. I can see why we thought that where it says preferred customer, we thought that was the total price.
Yeah, I apologize for the mishap, but it really was drastically confusing when I did it. And normally I'm used to looking at those bids and those are all the purchase prices, and it's easy to separate out what you need.
Yeah, I think it's frankly unusual that they wouldn't just have the final price listed. So.
I agree 100%.
I'll move to approve the purchase of service shop equipment for the new Public Works and Parks Operations facility at a cost not to exceed $138,853.92 and approve the $3,283.20 increase to the previously approved purchase of a tire changer using funds from the 2024 Public Works and Parks Operations facility project borrowing.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the purchases. Any further discussion? Hearing none. The motion is to approve the purchase of service shop equipment for the new Public Works and Parks Operations facility at a cost not to exceed $138,853.92 and approve the $3,283.20 increase for the previously approved purchase of a tire changer using funds from the 2024 Public Works and Parks Operations facility project borrowing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you. I know that was a mouthful. I thank you very much. Great, thank you.
Oh, you bet. Item 10J, review and possible action relating to a contract for fiber optic cable and splicing installation services from Cook Telecommunications at a cost not to exceed $9,011.32. Superintendent Williamson.
Yes, thank you again. This falls in line with the other two that I brought before council a short time ago. This is another one of the items that falls under our ownership responsibility for providing cable and data to the building itself. Inside of the building, the contractor, it's part of their contract price, but providing the service to the building, similar to the way that we provided the electrical service and gas service to the building. So staff reached out to Cook Telecommunications. They are the company that handled our fiber optic cable in the past. He's the most familiar with our system. To request a proposal for the cabling from the existing handhole that's out by the west shed to the new facility and maintaining service to the old facility. So both the new building will be up and running and the old building will stay running until we're ready to make the move. So he provided us a proposal that was split into two phases. The first phase is the initial phase where he'll provide the cable, the fiber optic cable installation and all of the patching and splicing to make connection to the new building. And that was for a total amount of $7,961.32. And then the second portion of the proposal, which billed at a later date, would be the disconnection of the old facility prior to the facility being demolished. And that includes correcting the patching that would go over to the new building and removing that cabling. Again, this falls under the FF&E budget of $545,000 placeholder. And I included the table below just as the third step to this process, just including the cost and what we would have remaining should the council approve the fiber optic installation of $9,011.32, leaving us with a remaining $75,988 in audiovisual and networking needs for inside of the building that fall under our obligation. So the staff recommends council approve the contract with Coke Telecommunications Service in the amount not to exceed $9,011.32, using funds again from the 2024 Public Works Parks Operations Facility borrowing.
We've had, are you comfortable that the last two items and this one sort of fit nicely with your early February move-in?
Yes.
Occupation?
Yeah, absolutely. And talking with Coke Telecommunications, he can pretty much jump on this right away. So the interior cabling can take place until our cable is in place. They can't take care of the interior cabling. So yeah, we should be good for order dates.
Okay, and and maybe I should have asked this on the other two items, but those
Sure.
purchases to
Mhm.
fall in line with.
Yep,
moving
we should
date.
be good on timing.
Good.
Mhm.
Any questions for superintendent?
Nope, looks good. I'll move to approve the contract for fiber optic cable and splicing installation services from Cook Telecommunications at a cost not to exceed $9,011.32 using funds from the 2024 Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Project borrowing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the contract. I don't know whether it's Cook or Coke, but Coke?
It's Coke.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the contract for fiber optic cable and splicing installation services from Coke Telecommunications at a cost not to exceed $9,011.32 using funds from the 2024 Public Works and Park Operations Facility Project borrowing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. We're getting closer.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Item 10K, review and possible action authorizing an environment and planning study to support the airport lighting and navigation upgrades from Mead and Hunt in an amount not to exceed $20,000. Director of Public Works, Sally.
Thank you. When people ask what I do, I'm going to direct them to this meeting. There's so many things going on here.
Nothing like going out with a bang, right?
Right. So, so the backstory here is this project to upgrade the navigation aids and the airport lighting was part of our CIP for the airport with the Bureau of Aeronautics, and it also appeared in our CIP plan that council has reviewed. The The reason for this request is that the project delivery mechanism has changed at the Bureau of Aeronautics. It used to be that they just simply handled this for us. We would be invoiced our 2% for the design fees as the project went forward and everything went on without any problem. The project delivery now requires the environmental and planning study to be done first, so as to make sure that the design itself would not be compromised. It further requires that the city or the airport owner in this situation pays for that study upfront, and that they do not use any federal grant funds towards that study. This is a recent development, and the reason that it's coming before you now is because we have BIL funds allocated to the airport that need to be allocated, or that need to be used within fiscal year 25, I think it is. I get my fiscal years mixed up, but I believe it's fiscal year 25. Long story short, we spoke with Colin Davidson, our Bureau of Aeronautics representative, who's been phenomenal, and came up with the approach that's before you this evening. We've done a solicitation for a group to do the design of these improvements. We talked to them about the cost to do the environment and planning study on the phone just late last week. They are certain that this endeavor won't cost more than $20,000. That $20,000 will be returned back to us once the project is eligible for federal grant funds. There's no reason to believe that it will not be acceptable for those federal grant funds. And at that time, we will have that $20,000 deducted from the 2% that we owe on the project. So again, a bit convoluted. I do understand the reasoning, I guess, for doing this ahead of time. I don't necessarily understand that the airport owner pays for it. So we will direct the Bureau of Aeronautics to engage in a contract with Mead and Hunt, who was selected from a group of, I think, 5 proposers, which I reviewed, and ink that contract not to exceed $20,000. We do not need to be a party on that contract picture, but I do need authorization from council, obviously, to move forward with that. We would spend city funds for that out of the airport accounts. So if you recall, we have about $75,000 in airport grant monies that we have accumulated through various programs during the pandemic that are sitting in that account and can be used for our match in these federal grant programs. So the $20,000 will come from those accounts, not from the general fund, and will be reimbursed then back into those accounts when the project is completed, the design portion of the project is completed. Any questions? I feel like I've had some confusing things this evening.
Andy, I'm just curious, what kind of environmental factors are they going to be looking at with this study?
Specific to our airport, they will be looking at wetlands, which we have a small area of a drainage ditch that's near the PAPI lights. Don't ask me what PAPI stands for because I can never remember, but it basically keeps an airplane indicating whether it's high or low of the runway approach. That's really the only thing that we expect. There is a process that needs to be followed regardless of whether you expect there to be any of the issues, archaeological, wildlife, wetlands, endangered species. You run through the list fairly quickly and say, no, we don't need to look at these things. There's no reason to, but yet it still needs to be accomplished. So, so that's the only thing in the discussion I had with Mead and Hunt that they said there may be a wetland in the area if we have to move these PAPI lights, but outside of that, this should be a pretty bare bones environmental and planning study.
Just kind of making sure we check the boxes.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, I'll move to authorize negotiation of contract for the environmental and planning study to support the airport lighting and navigation upgrades with Mead and Hunt in an amount not to exceed $20,000 using CARES Act funds from the airport fund balance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize negotiation of the contract. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to authorize negotiation of a contract for the environmental and planning study to support the airport lighting and navigation upgrades with Mead and Hunt in an amount not to exceed $20,000 using CARES Act funds from the airport fund balance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Andy. And at the risk of speaking for my fellow colleagues, thanks for your years of service with us. It's been a pleasure working with you.
It's been a pleasure working with you. You guys have, you've never wavered in your confidence for all of us, frankly, here at the city. In fact, I don't think I've ever been denied a request, but I have been asked some pretty pointed questions, which is expected. So that rapport is incredibly important for what we do, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Item 11, miscellaneous. We have no miscellaneous items this evening. Claims, appropriations, and contract payments. Item 12A, review and possible action relating to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the claims. Any discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorize payment. This is a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Shakel,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Lesko here.
Aye, motion is approved 4-0. Item 13, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. If I may to thank you all for your hard work and diligence tonight and throughout the year. It's been a busy year and we've got a very productive year as well. Enjoy the holiday season and we'll reconvene in 2025.